Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today, welcome to another detailed forecast update. We've got a lot to be getting through today. We've got a powerful cold front that's just swept through Western Australia and is now moving into South Australia and the Northern Territory. We're going to provide a recap on that and talk about the potential for some thunderstorms over in the southeast of Queensland and across New South Wales, and just a general weather forecast across the tropics and across southern Australia. All of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you're brand new here, please consider subscribing. Your support lately has been greatly appreciated. So we're going to start things off over in the southwest of Western Australia. We have had a powerful cold front blow through overnight, and you can see it swirling down across the southern part of the state now, just towards the south of Esperance. It's still driving ashore quite a lot of showery crap between sort of about Northcliffe through Albany, across towards Hopetown and Esperance, and there is a bit of a cold front band now extending in towards South Australia, which is providing some moderate to heavy falls just outside of Ceduna that have swept through Nullarbor, providing about 20 millimetres of much needed rainfall out there. The rainfall there is going to pipe up across South Australia, but it's not going to make it too far into the state. We're going to get to that in just a second, but let's recap over what's happened in Western Australia. So last night was a wild night. There was a bunch of severe weather and multiple wind reportings in excess of 100 kilometres an hour across much of the southwest of the state. The southwest capes both received wind gusts in excess of 100 kilometres an hour. It was a wild night. Rottnest Island also picked up a peak wind gust of 102 kilometres an hour. Some heavy falls were recorded around the city. My personal weather gauge has gone from 16 millimetres from the initial band of the storm to now 46 millimetres, which is an extra 30 millimetres of rainfall from all of the showers that moved through last night. The Perth Metro itself has picked up about 25 millimetres, which is on par with what we expected, and then some communities in the hills, again with what I forecast a couple of days ago, up towards 50, maybe even 55 and 60 millimetres out towards Bickley and then down towards Harvey. Some heavy falls have been reported there. Now the weather is going to be unpleasant today. You can see all the clouds streaming in behind this low pressure system. That's going to provide some light falls for the coastline. It's also going to keep temperatures cool and winds up across much of the southwest. The winds will gradually ease throughout the course of today, and we're certainly talking about non-severe wind gusts at this time. Those severe wind gusts are now contracting towards the coastline between Hopetown across towards Esperance and Curtin, and those again will continue to weaken off throughout the course of today. This low pressure system is now starting to weaken off. For comparison, yesterday it had a barometric pressure of about 985 millibars. Now it's into the 990s, and it will continue to rise throughout the course of today, which means that the severe weather threat is shrinking. Temperatures as well, like I said, are going to be kept cool. In fact, some locations will peak at around now in terms of the maximum temperature before slowly cooling off throughout the course of today. It's going to be a cold one, so make sure you do rug up. Rather unseasonable for October, where temperatures are going to be quite a few degrees below average, so again, make sure you do rug up. The severe storm threat as well across Central Australia. We did have some very good falls across parts of Central Australia between Warburton on the Gun Barrel Highway inland towards Lanista, Laverton and Meekatharra. We've had rainfall accumulations up to 55 millimetres out there, so some really good falls, which is fantastic to see because again, much needed rainfall. Rainfall is always wanted out in the desert. Roads will be impassable for the next couple of days, potentially the next week as well, especially in those areas that have been hard hit by severe thunderstorms out there with the heavy rainfall. So make sure you do proceed through that area with caution, and I would get on top of the main roads page or the Shire offices just to make sure that you're not going down a road that's going to end up impassable. Head further north. My recommendation would be to head up towards Newman or Tom Price and then cut yourself inland up around here. The roads up there are of better quality, and they will also most likely not be closed from the rainfall because the rainfall has been concentrated down here. Again, this is very remote Western Australia, so I'm talking to a very niche audience at this time, but there has been some pretty heavy falls through there, so if you are planning on travelling through here, first of all, it's going to be an absolutely amazing drive in the next couple of weeks with the rainfall that's expected to turn everything green, but expect roads to be impassable for quite a few days, potentially up to a week as stuff slowly starts to dry off over there. And I'm just going to give a brief weather forecast for South Australia before we head over and talk about Queensland's weather. We do have this cold front moving throughout the course of today, and it's bringing some showers and thunderstorms across parts of the South Australia NT border, so again into pretty remote South Australia, but throughout the course of today and especially by this evening, the rainfall as it gets itself towards the Eyre Peninsula, which is in desperate need of a drink, it's going to ease off dramatically. And in the southeast corner of South Australia, there's really not much in the way of rainfall expected there, just a couple of millimetres, and I can show you that on the precipitation forecast map throughout the course of today and into early tomorrow morning over that 24-hour period. Rainfall accumulations are not going to be more than a couple of millimetres over here. Adelaide expecting between 1 and 5 millimetres. Parts of the Eyre Peninsula could pick up towards 10 millimetres, but again, it's much needed rainfall, but really a drop in the ocean compared to what they do need, and it's starting to get quite concerning across parts of South Australia. They desperately need this rainfall because they are experiencing severe drought-like conditions across parts of SA, so the rainfall there as I've said about 8 times in the past minute, is much needed for crops and for farmers out there, which is quite unfortunate because it isn't going to be falling from this weather system, unfortunately. And there really isn't too much in the way of rainfall either on the horizon for South Australia. You can see here over the 10-day forecast, there's really nothing now on the forecast for South Australia, and even into Western Australia as well. This winter weather looks to be done and dusted, and I don't really see any more strong cold fronts moving through. There is always a chance in October, but I think we've already had our strong cold front, is what I'm trying to say, and I don't think we're going to be seeing any more significant cold front activity. That's a lot of winter weather. I bet you're shivering right now watching this video. So let's go up and talk about Queensland. Last night we did have some severe thunderstorms fire up around Tambo, south of Blackwall and Longreach, between Longreach and Charleville, exactly where I did expect. Now they were non-severe for the most part, but I did sight a few cells that looked like they were going supercell on the radar. Unfortunately, we can't go back that far in time with windy.com, which is sad because I do love this archive feature that they have, but it takes too long for me to feasibly use it in a video. But we did have some good thunderstorms fire up, and peak rainfall accumulations were 60 millimeters outside of Tambo. So again, some pretty good rainfall out there, and the farmers will be rubbing their hands with non-severe thunderstorms with only small hailstones and isolated pockets of heavy rainfall, dumping some very healthy rainfall accumulations across parts of Queensland. So this is really good news for them. Thankfully, the forecast didn't come to fruition there. It was always going to be a hard sell, but it was looking very likely to, and a very possible outlook to get some pretty nasty thunderstorms. Thankfully, they did not materialize. Now, I have cited a few Facebook posts, and I know I should not be trusting Facebook for weather forecasts about thunderstorms over in the southeastern Queensland, but that's why I'm bringing it up here. Just don't pay attention to what you see online half of the time. Always take it with a heavy pinch of salt and make sure that they actually have evidence behind them, because I've seen the potential for massive severe thunderstorms plastered all over some of the Facebook groups in the southeast of Queensland this weekend and into Monday. And you can see here there are a few thunderstorms that do fire up, but looking at it on Saturday, they're expected to be pulse thunderstorms. Again, it's going to be a warm weekend where temperatures are going to go up into the mid-30s for parts of southeastern Queensland, into the scenic rim around Bow Desert and Ipswich, and then for Brisbane into the low to mid-30s there. But again, Sunday, a few storms fire up, but again, nothing interesting there. And then, I mean, look at this on Monday. To call this a massive severe thunderstorm event here, that's really stretching the definition quite a lot. This is really nothing to be concerned about at this time. It's something that we will visit day by day on this channel, but again, I'm not seeing the risk of massive severe thunderstorms across Queensland's southeast. I'm saying that there is a chance of thunderstorms, however, on Saturday and Sunday, but it's pretty low. I mean, I'm giving this maybe a 20 or 30% chance of being a thunderstorm event for the Brisbane Metro. And I'm not saying that thunderstorms won't form, but I'm saying that what you're seeing on Facebook is definitely fake news. I'm not going to name and shame, but again, make sure you do take everything that you see over there with a heavy pinch of salt and back it up with the Bureau of Meteorology or windy.com or another forecasting agency. Go and have a look for yourself. I mean, here, every forecast and every word that I speak, I've got the evidence on screen. Make sure that you do have that, otherwise you're not going to get a reliable forecast on. Let's talk about rainfall for southeastern Queensland in general. Now, into the middle parts of next week, we are expecting a bit of a rainfall event to fire up. We could be seeing some showers and storms from Tuesday onwards along the Queensland coastline. You can see it here. Again, not really looking at severe thunderstorms on this night. I'm more sort of talking about a big kind of squall line to fire up, if that makes sense, and we could be seeing some thunderstorms here. But this is looking quite far out into the future now, about 5 days, which for thunderstorms is about 5 years into the future. So we will revisit this this weekend and early next week. Again, the heads up, Tuesday and Wednesday, we could be seeing some thunderstorms, which could drop up to 25 millimeters on Tuesday afternoon and evening around the southeastern corner of Queensland. And then up in towards the central coast as well on Tuesday and Wednesday, we'll be seeing some thunderstorms fire up as far north as Mackay and Townsville. Again, rainfall should be light. Once you get further inland, the rainfall will be a little bit heavier between sort of Mackay and Rockhampton out towards Emerald and Clermont. The rainfall will be heavier out there, but again, only about 20 to 25 millimeters is expected. And you guessed it, up in far north Queensland as well, where we're headed to next for the next part of the video, there's really no rainfall on the forecast. There is a little bit that does fire up towards the end of the forecast period, the end of next week, but it really doesn't hang around for long. And rainfall accumulations looking pretty dry across Queensland's far north for the next 10 days. You can see peak accumulations in the Daintree up to about 40 millimeters, which again, as I do say, you can get away with doubling that, 80 millimeters, but still for far north Queensland, that's a drop in the ocean. There's really not much rainfall expected up there, and as I said yesterday, they are on water restrictions in some locations, and I do expect there to be some drought-like conditions developing sometime into the later parts of October if they don't get rainfall soon, because they do actually need it up there. It is tropical, so they have no shortage of rainfall the year round, but it's around this time of the year where they are in their true dry season, their month or two of really dry weather, and that's when things do get quite uncomfortable, and especially when the rain comes, it is a complete flip, a head flip on the forecast, on what has been happening up there rather. So yeah, no rainfall up in Queensland's far north, 10-day rainfall accumulations as well, looking pretty healthy in contrast to that across Western Australia and the Northern Territory. You can see here over the northern parts of WA, we're expecting up towards 50, potentially 55 millimetres in the parts of the Kimberley region. That's just from thunderstorms expected to fire up pretty much every night from Monday onwards next week, and those thunderstorms will extend over into the Northern Territory as well. So for Darwin residents, expect a few thunderstorms to fire up, especially in some of the more inland suburbs, and then across on towards Melville Island, where you'd be expecting Hector to fire up sometime next week, on a few nights actually, and you could be in for a good light show in the evening hours. However, we're not really expecting any major thunderstorms to fire up over Darwin. You've still probably got a couple more weeks to wait for that, but it's really getting close now when the wet season is going to properly break. We're starting to see some pretty consistent rumbles now on the forecast later on into October, but that is talk for a couple more videos into the future. Now, just before we finish off this video, we're going to head down south again. Tasmania, unfortunately, just will not leave the winter forecast. You can see up to 150 millimetres of rainfall possible in the next 10 days, and that's just from a series of cold fronts that's expected to belt through in the next 10 days. Currently under the influence of a pleasant high-pressure system, which is bringing warm temperatures to much of the state, into the mid-teens expected throughout the course of today, and in fact the early 20s possible across the northern coast, into Victoria as well, into the high 20s and early 30s for parts of the northern part of the state. So it is going to be a warm one over there before this cold front unfortunately sweeps through tomorrow morning and ruins the warm temperatures over there. Again, just more cold fronts expected to move through. Another one going through Tasmania on Saturday. It's going to be a weak one with very little rainfall expected. Another one on Sunday morning. This one might have a little bit more rainfall, especially for the west and the north coast, up to 25 millimetres of the stuff. And then Monday morning, some more rainfall expected and the potential for snowfall for elevations above 700 metres. So there is still more winter weather on the forecast. They do get it broken up a little bit with a high pressure ridge expected to develop into the middle parts of next week before another cold front brushes through on Thursday the 10th of October, another one on Friday and then Saturday, and some snowfall also expected in the higher elevations. And all of this rainfall, none of these cold fronts look particularly severe, definitely not for heavy rainfall, that's for sure. It does add up. I mean, take a look at this. Peak rainfall accumulations now on the forecast up to that 130, 140 millimetre mark around Queenstown and Strawn. Some good accumulations along much of the west coast up to about 115 millimetres there. Strathgordon expecting about 85 millimetres down towards Mount Cyclone Island and Low Rocky Point between 90 and 120 millimetres. Even Hobart expecting a pretty good 20 millimetres. That's pretty good for this time of the year. Along the east coast between 20 and 40 millimetres too. So all in all, some good accumulations for Tasmania. And not forgetting about Victoria either. Some good accumulations around the Melbourne metro up towards 25 millimetres over the next 10 days. And you saw it on that forecast there. A few cold fronts belting through into the later parts of this weekend and into early next week. Some good rainfall also expected along some of the higher elevations in the east of the state and then into the Gippsland region. So all in all, it's looking pretty wet across parts of Victoria and Tasmania, especially for this time of the year. Normally the cold fronts that do sweep through just bring a couple of strong gusts of wind and some light showers, but they're actually bringing some proper rainfall, which is a little bit more on the unusual side for this time of the year. But again, nothing crazy, nothing too severe is expected. In terms of drought monitoring as well, you can see this is definitely needed rainfall for parts of Victoria and Tasmania, and you can see by the end of the forecast period, Tasmania is pretty much out of their developing drought-like conditions, their drier phase that they've been in for the last month. Victoria, however, still struggling a little bit, but the coast, you can see, is still above average soil moisture values along the coast, and the same story for Tasmania. So it is all in all looking like a pretty good forecast and some definitely much needed rainfall across parts of Victoria and Tasmania. So I'm very glad to be the presenter of some good news for once on this channel. Nothing too severe, but some good weather is expected there. Anyways, that is pretty much all that I have time for today. I've really, as you can tell, I've really pushed out as much of a forecast as I can today, including as much detail as I can. If I've left anything unanswered, then please do let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. If there's anything you'd like covered in future uploads as well, especially over the next week, because we do we're moving into a much more stable period weather-wise, let's just say that. So unfortunately, there's not going to be as much detail in these forecasts, which is a little bit sad because I do love tracking the weather. So if there's anything specific that you'd like covered or talked about in an upcoming video, then please do let me know in the comment section down below. As always, thank you so much for watching to this point. The support lately has been much appreciated. Special shout out to channel sponsors. The names are on screen right now. And make sure you go and give the second iteration of the Big Wet Forecast a watch. That is a fantastic video and a must watch if you do live in the northern half of Australia. But that is all for me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.